to put on their headlamps and shine a light on the mucky, messy near future, so that people of goodwill can see more clearly and have more courage to act. And you have brilliantly unpacked the historical legacies we struggle with today politically, how we got here, and what remedies we can apply to liberate us from the strangleholds on democracy. And we're passing through what seems to me to be a stress test on American democracy. And as of this moment, the jury is out. So the question we pose to every guest is, what could possibly go right? And by this, I'm asking you to look out over this vast battlefield of the election and show us the lay of the land. What opportunities for a more perfect union, a sane, healthy, wise union have arisen? What are you paying attention to? What surprises have come? Where do the good people who listen to you and who listen to me step next in the battlefield, according to Thom? What could possibly go right?
But we'll keep it moving. We got another interesting clip that I came across, and I call it "Who Are We?" Because in this clip, to me, is a lot of questions that I have about the mind state of this person who's calling into the Thom Hartman show. And it's another discussion that I think that we have amongst ourselves, and we probably don't even know it. We don't think about it. It's just something that is said, but no real thought behind the actual words being said.
Just want to kind of comment on the racial
critical race theory.
Yeah, I'm a black man and kind of qualify, or I say myself to be African American. I also, on my mother's side, my great grandmothers, both of them were half indigenous, and so the genocide committed against the black people and the indigenous people needs to be taught. I don't understand why all of this uproar. It baffles me. I remember growing up in elementary school and middle school, and they described the Pilgrims and the Indian having Thanksgiving dinner together like it was it was hunky dory. But that really wasn't what was happening. We really need to teach the truth.
Yeah, and those Indians got slaughtered. And, and spot on, Gerald. I was talking about this with a friend of mine in email yesterday. We had a long correspondence, and I kind of wandered into this whole history of Europe where the Central Europeans wiped out the indigenous people of Europe. Right? This is kind of white-on-white crime, as it were, right? Wiped out the old languages, wiped out the old religions, tore down the sacred groves. They attacked my grandfather's country, Norway, 700 years ago, turned it Catholic. We found this stone in the backyard of my grandfather's ancestral family house that's got all this writing on it that nobody can read anymore. This idea of literally wiping out cultures, in some cases wiping out the people associated with them too, but at least cultural genocide, if not actual outright genocide. Just this wild insanity that has come out of Europe over the last 2,000 years is just breathtaking. Now, I've recently read a history of, kind of an abbreviated history of China, dynastic China. In some ways, it's kind of the same, and it's like ability of human beings to basically go insane and inflict insanity on other human beings is just so terrible.
I have plenty of white friends. I don't hate my white friends. I don't think my children would hate any of their white friends.
Yeah.
If they know the history, I don't understand the uproar. I think it's just political, really. But
it is, and the fact is that probably the vast majority of Republican voters, white Republican voters, don't know anybody who's black and are just bought into these cartoon characters, these cartoon images that the GOP is constantly trying to create of black people that are not accurate, that are not honest, but have a political purpose.
Alejandro was kind of all over the place when it comes to how to claim his nationality. And I think a lot of us have that problem. And it's just easier to go along with the name that's been given this time because it keeps changing. But the name for us this time is African Americans. And to listen to him is not necessarily eye-opening, but it's humbling to hear that it's 2021 and it's still a question. Who are we? What's your thoughts about the last clip?
Again, I don't want to be on this episode harping about integration, but it seems like we'll be the one that's at the wedding, at the barbecue. You know, he accepts his position. You know, he's a house Negro. It seemed like not to throw out slurs or being mean or saying anything harsh about him. But I mean, like you mentioned, it's 2021. He says that his family members are indigenous, and then he said he calls himself Afro American. Okay, then obviously there's a cultural misunderstanding or something that's not understood about, like you said, who he is or who we are in that sense. You know, that mystery has been an ongoing factor for the longest time of American history. You know, and the just it's kind of a shivering factor to think about just going along, being along, and accepting what's given to you, and not having the sense of or ideal or just questioning something. Wait a minute, is this really true? Is this is I mean, could it be something else? Could it be that it is not taught correctly? And it goes along with the prior clips, what they're taught, in the books, or whitewashing and what's who printed those books? Who wrote the subject matter in those books? See, it stems from just one thing, and it branches out just like the roots of a tree or strange fruit. Things that has happened, and you just accept it, or do you, especially 2021, is when will it be a point where you just have to analyze and question it all? And as Thom Hartman was saying, that even the indigenous of Europe, and that they were causing genocide over there, or cultural massacre. Now, that's in Europe, and a lot of Europeans travel to America. Now, again, like I mentioned before, with the integration, if they're doing that to their own kind, why would you rush to be part of something of that nature? And those are my thoughts. What do you say?
Yeah, well, I think at this point there's no alternative. You don't necessarily have to get along to go along, but the infrastructure's been built by others and not ourselves. So we're pretty much having to use what they built until we do better. But at the end of the day, I believe all of this is a simple fear of black people. And I think this next clip he breaks it down pretty well, where it is psychological stress that is causing a lot of this turmoil between the races. But it stems from them more so than it does anybody else. Let's play this last clip.
Thom Hartman here with you and Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's up?
The topic that you've been talking about Sweden and Norway and the European countries, Tyrone was dead on point, and you and I have had this discussion before. If you look at those countries and look at the percentage of black people in those countries, it's demonstrably lower than in the United States. And one of the reasons that you don't have those types of programs in the United States is because white people, European Americans, do not want to share that pie with the people that many of them think are inferior. I'm not going to do that. That's the mentality. For instance, take when schools were desegregated, and I lived through some of that. You know, that was public education, and white people sent their kids to public schools all the time. It wasn't a problem. All of a sudden, when the schools got desegregated, when busing started, white people started taking their children out of schools. You talked about the 13th Amendment and how slavery is still legalized by the 13th Amendment. What is the largest population of people that are in prison? What is that ethnic group? They're black people. This is the issue. It's the fabric of this country. And then you had a guy talk about the national anthem, and he failed to mention that Francis Scott Key in his third verse said, and that's no refuge could save the hiring enslaved from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Right. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And over the weekend, I wrote a piece about the American flag because most people have no idea what those symbols mean.
Yeah, yeah. I would go beyond what you just suggested. You started out by saying that you've got basically white people who don't want black people to have good things. I think it goes even beyond that. When I was doing the research for this book, The Hidden History of American Healthcare, that'll be out in a few weeks, the thing that shocked me so much that I learned was this guy, Frederick Hoffman. He was actually a German immigrant. This was in the late 19th century, although he lived in right up until the late 1940s. And he was the vice president of the Prudential Insurance Company. And he wrote a book called Race Traits of the American Negro. And he traveled around America preaching that black people were so inferior that if we simply, that without slavery, they would ultimately die out. But to hurry that up, to speed up that die out process, we had to make sure that they didn't have access to things like health insurance. And he peddled that, and it was purchased. I mean, that hook, line, and sinker, that was the sales pitch that he was using, that his insurance company was using, that his allies were using, that the American Medical Association, which was all white up until the 1960s, was using, that hospital associations were using to deny health care to black people, particularly in states with large black populations. And to a large extent, it was about power. I mean, you had in Georgia and in South Carolina in particular, you had a white power structure that was genuinely and legitimately afraid of a black takeover, essentially, as happened immediately, after the Civil War in South Carolina. And they were afraid of retribution, essentially. Now, the retribution never came. In fact, no black people were ever even talking seriously, no movement to, let's go kill white people, after the Civil War. But nonetheless, that was the thing. This is about maintaining white supremacy, Kenyatta, beyond just, hey, let's keep nice things from white people, if I may.
Well, listen, that's absolutely the case. And to further what you're saying, I'm sure you're familiar as you're finishing up your book, or as it is about to come out. And I'm actually working on something kind of similar. In an article there was about James Marion Sims, who was known as the father of American gynecology. Yeah. And he said that they did horrible things to black women. Horrible. Most of the things that are used in a gynecologist office, particularly speculum and some other things, but things that you just can't imagine.
Oh, he did vivisection, essentially. I mean, it was like, dissections of living people on black women.
Wait. Without
anesthetic.
Anesthesia, because he said that black people did not feel pain. Right. Black women did not feel pain.
He didn't just say it, he wrote it. This influences, American medicine to this day. It's breathtaking when you dig into this history and you see, it's just mind-boggling. It's just
yes, it is.
Mind-boggling, and we are all still living with it. And people like yourself who are black are suffering from it, and people like me who are white are also suffering from it, because this entire political system that has evolved out of this that now conspires to keep people from voting and to keep all Americans from having good things, because God forbid black people will have them. It's insane. It's just insane. Kenyatta, I got to run, but thank you for the call. Mm-hmm. Always good to hear from you.
I said, yeah, I'm agreeing. In agreement with what they've stated, that it's all about power and how they have an unwillingness to want everybody to have some kind of equal, stable footing.
Well, that clip brought everything in full circle. You did an excellent job bringing it to light and demonstrating it. That's what too. But again, I mean, not sounding anti anything, but I truly believe that it all stems down to the integration of America. If so-called whites or Europeans don't want any other minority being part or having anything, or share, if they didn't want to share, then what was the purpose of having or being integrated in the first place? Is it because that they wanted to keep the previous freed slaves close to them? Did they want to control their lifestyle and their living? Do they still want to do medical harm to them, keep them misinformed in the dark, change the history? It goes on and on. You can see how damaging this situation has become. I mean, yes, of course, it shows that they are afraid, or they're frightened by uh, I guess dark skin, copper tone people. But I think it goes further, or it goes further rooted than that. I think in general there are just some people that's just selfish, and that is uh, diabolical. Their I guess it's their mental character that they are uh, evil. They want to destroy, or find a way to des- uh, destroy or tear down, and keep things belittled underneath them. It's a power struggle amongst yourselves, amongst others. So, yeah, I mean, all great clips, audio clips, and they prove what we already, in a sense, can see or been shown through history. And again, it's, it's very important to know correct history. You know, you can't move on. You can't improve. You can't build without having the proper knowledge. That's why I wholeheartedly state that the integration uh, idea, although might have been somewhat uh, a way that maybe they wanted to make things right. That's debatable, but in the 50, 60, almost 70 some odd years heading into integration, what has it really accomplished? This is the question that you have to ask yourself, or everyone has to ask themselves. Doesn't matter if they're European, or Afro American, Black American, white American, Hispanic, Latino, or or whomever, indigenous. You know, what has it really accomplished? Again, these are my thoughts, and I could be wrong, but you know, from what I've seen, and history has taught us, you know, it could have been done better, or there should have been another option. 40 acres in the middle doesn't sound so bad now. Black Wall Street uh, shown that it was capable and possible. So these are what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. Any last final thoughts from you,
Uh,
Vessel Two?
I think that your thinking is correct. Um, it's my thoughts on integration. Yeah, I believe there should have been another option. It shouldn't have been forced. I don't really see how it's worked out in anybody's favor other than their favor. But I believe that was their agenda from the very beginning.
There you
I
go.
I don't really think that integration was supposed to do anything other than what it's already done. And I'm not sure if separation would have ever been the case, because there's always been some type of mixture from both sides. It was just outlawed and banned and heavily looked down upon. But yeah, I agree. Integration is probably not the best thing that could have happened to us as a nation the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's this integration factor. Uh, it's like a bad constellation prize. You know, instead of giving what people really need to uh, start a strong foundation or improve themselves or get things moving in a positive direction. It's like, hey, instead of us giving you the land, why don't you live with us and you can live like us and be around us and have some of the things that we have. It's like a bad joke. You know? That's the way I
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, and only one side is laughing.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I concur wholeheartedly. Yeah. But yeah, this has been a very enlightening and interesting episode to say the least. And all great clips. And thank you, Vessel, too, for bringing it to the forefront. And although it may be a very touchy subject, but it's one nonetheless that we need to address, and the people need to hear about it.
I concur. Not a problem. It's back to digging into the crates. We'll see what we can come up with next week. Hope the people enjoy what we brought to them this week. Stay tuned. Stay safe. See you next week. Hear from you soon. Peace.
Peace.